African Continental Free Trade Area is bringing many opportunities but also many challenges at the same time. A major challenge that we have had is the various currencies that we have to transact, trade amongst ourselves in the various countries on the African continent as a whole. The Pan-African Payment System is a mechanism that has been set up to find ways and means of not only streamlining the various currencies we have on the African continent, but also finding ways and means through which we can actually transact amongst ourselves, have intra-African trade amongst ourselves without having to use foreign currencies such as the US dollar. Join me on this program, courtesy of the Single African Market, hosted by Samuel Ajamang, to find out more about the PAPS, the Pan-African Payment System. Enjoy the show. Hello there, it's the Single African Market, trumpeting the vision of the continent of Africa to integrate its market all across the continent as well as beyond, representing the voices of businesses also across the continent and beyond. Now, this week there is good news. In fact, it began in the previous week. That is the fact that the Pan-African Payment Settlement Systems by the AFCFTA as well as the AfriExim is operational in 6 West African countries, that is the WAMSI countries. So that includes Ghana, Nigeria, Guinea, which is the only Francophone country among the 6 countries that have begun the operationalization of the PAPS, that's the Pan-African Payment Settlement Systems. We will be crossing over to Cairo to talk to the team who made it possible. That's the PAPS office as well as the AfriExim office. The Chief Executive Officer himself is standing by. We'll be crossing over to him to congratulate the team, also find out what this whole operationalization of PAPS means for the vision of the continent to integrate its market. We'll get there. In the meantime, the AFCFTA Secretariat has been busy. The Secretary General himself has been roaming around the entire continent, preaching the gospel of the continent, integrating its market everywhere. This week, he was in Malawi, met the Malawian president. He was in Zimbabwe to meet the Zimbabweans and particularly the Zim Trade folks who organized a conference on trade, innovation and export, and hoping that Zimbabwe will be able to increase its export from 10% upwards. That is the vision.
It's really a matter of congratulation to Zim Trade for you to be able to convene a conference of this nature under very, very challenging circumstances. But I think it expresses the commitment that you have to what the CEO expressed as a need to reach 10%, to breach 10% of exports yearly, as the President directed. And I want to thank him in particular for the invitation and the very warm hospitality. This year's theme for the annual conference, Adapt, Innovate, Export, is timely and very apt given the backdrop of the COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic has not only ignited a global health crisis, but also altered the way we work and how we conduct our business. Today, there's a more urgent need to adapt and innovate to achieve the resilience and flexibility required in the so-called new norm that we find ourselves in. Indeed, this crisis has not only facilitated, but has also compelled governments and the private sector to rapidly embrace innovation. And for the exporters yourselves, having innovative products means more exports and achieving economies of scale and enhancing your competitiveness. That is why it is critical that you adapt your business models, diversify and produce innovative products, not only to ensure your business's survival, but also to keep pace with technological changes around the world. As you know, exports play a critical role in the economy, and hence in Zimbabwe, just like in any other country in Africa, prioritizing export performance is absolutely critical. Exports greatly influence the level of economic growth, employment, and balance of payments. And as in most of our member states of the African Union, where foreign currency is always inadequate, exports play an important role in generating much-needed foreign currency, which in turn can be deployed to finance the importation of capital goods, intermediate inputs that are essential to domestic production. Well, the purpose of the visit was to first congratulate the government of Malawi for all the work that the government has done to prepare for implementation of the AfCFTA, and more importantly, it was to brief the President of the Republic, as well as the Minister of Trade and the private sector, on the work that we've been doing since the establishment of the AfCFTA Secretariat, but through the establishment of regional value chains, access to new markets in West Africa, in East Africa, in North Africa. We have a market of 1.2 billion people with a combined GDP of $3.4 trillion. And the opportunity is there for Malawi to move beyond SADC in terms of its export diversification and to be able to benefit from this large market through industrialization, value-added production.
The enthusiasm is huge across Africa. Malawians are preparing, Zimbabweans are preparing. You can only look out at this platform to get all the preparations across the entire continent. Wherever it's happening, we will endeavor, once it's about AfCFTA and the vision of the continent, we'll endeavor to bring them to you. Now, there is good news for this whole vision and this whole drive. For those who thought that, you know, we can't do this and all of that, already the signs are showing significant improvement. The Pan-African Payments and Settlement System is now operational in 6 countries within West Africa, the WAMSI countries, Ghana, Nigeria, and Guinea inclusive, which is the only Francophone country among the 6 countries. This will mean that you can drop in Ghana cedis here in Ghana, in the commercial bank or central bank in Ghana, and you can get an equivalent of what you need, what you deposited in Nigeria, in Nigerian Naira, to purchase and do business however you want it. You no longer have to convert into dollar or pound to get that result. Thanks to AfriExim and PAPS, this is now possible. We're going to cross over to Cairo and speak to the team there, congratulate them, and find out more.
As far back as 1994, the founders of AfriExim Bank had enshrined in the establishment agreement, which was signed by the 50 plus countries of the continent, saying that AfriExim Bank will put in place payment infrastructure or support payment arrangements that will help intra-Africa trade. Now, that being the background, I'm happy to announce that we are now live in the 6 WAMSI countries. So we've been able to do all of the technology work to integrate the central banks. We've been able to we are now doing live transactions between the central banks. And we're at the point where we are now integrating commercial banks and switches within the WAMSI region. And additionally, we are now signaling to the rest of Africa, to the different central banks across Africa, that PAPS is available to connect to these central banks. So indeed, you are right. We have gone live.
Great to hear. When you talk about WAMSI, for the purposes of our audience who are not too familiar with some of these, if you talk about WAMSI, obviously we have West Africa Monetary Zone. If you can share with us, under what category did you select them?
You are absolutely right. WAMSI is West Africa Monetary Zone. It's a collection of 6 countries. And like I said, Nigeria, Ghana, Guinea, Gambia, Sierra Leone, and Liberia, the 6 of them. These 6 countries, we chose the WAMSI region because we were looking for a region that would be just as diverse as the rest of the continent, where we are able to integrate countries that have different currencies, that have different central banks, that speak different languages. So of the 6 countries, 5 of them are English speaking, and Guinea is the one French speaking country within the WAMZ zone.
Okay, so this is supposed to sort of serve as a pilot, a case study for the rest of the continent?
Absolutely. PAPS is designed to create a single payment infrastructure that brings together the entire continent on the one infrastructure. But we started a pilot in the WAMZ area. Now we are now reaching out to the rest of the continent to be able to connect into the PAPS.
What timelines do you have to engage the rest of the continent?
Well, again, one of the things that you find doing business on the continent, or talking with different governments, is that they don't all move at the same pace. However, we have enjoyed significant support from the regional switches that exist on the continent, who also would like to connect.
After the 6 countries that you have tried in West Africa, are you going to have the whole of West Africa rolled on before you deal with the rest of the other regions on the continent, or the rest will all come on board at the same time?
So our focus is, WAMZ was a pilot, and it had no special affiliation to the West African region. It was more to showcase what we can do. And of course, we enjoyed significant support from the West African Monetary Institute. And also the AFTA. So yes, we've started in West Africa, but moving beyond the WAMZ region, we'll focus on the countries that are quickest to come, and we'll connect them. So if for example, Tanzania is the first country that comes, then we'll connect Tanzania. But just to also point out that we have the flexibility to connect to countries, and we also have the flexibility to connect to regional payment infrastructures. So for example, if in the Southern African region or in the Eastern African region, they have a regional payment infrastructure, then we're happy to connect to that regional infrastructure. And by that way, we have connection with all of the countries that are within that regional infrastructure. So I'm saying that we don't necessarily have to do all of West Africa before we start looking for other regions, but there are advantages in connecting other West African states because there's a large trade that is already happening among them. So we are talking to the infrastructures in that region as well.
Okay. So if somebody is listening now, a Ghanaian who does a lot of business in Nigeria, for instance, and you're saying that PAPS is working in Ghana, is working in Nigeria, they've got goods to move from Ghana to Nigeria, or they have some imports to undertake from Nigeria to Ghana, what would this mean for them in terms of payment systems? How can they benefit from what you have been able to execute on behalf of this continent?
Okay, thanks for that question. And again, the sooner we start bringing this value to the everyday man in each of the countries, the better for us. But let me speak to the fact that the starting point was that we built an underlying settlement infrastructure in partnership with the central banks. So we connected our core to each of the central banks within these 6 countries. Okay. And then on top of that, commercial banks can now join and be able to do transactions on behalf of customers. So we are starting with commercial banks, but then we'll extend it to any other payment service provider. So Kojo in Ghana, who has Ghanaian cedis sitting in his bank account within Ghana, is able to give an instruction or initiate a transaction and to pay, for example, Musa in Nigeria. Okay, so he gets debited in Ghanaian cedis, and Musa gets Naira in Nigeria, and this transaction happens instantly, okay?
Instantly?
Yes, instantly, and both parties get notification. It removes the need for each of them to start looking for either a third-party currency, because the transaction started in CD and ended up in Naira. It also, so the transactions so far within our tests have been completing within 7 seconds, but then we are committing to the entire continent that these transactions will go through in no more than 120 seconds. So even though we are committing 120 seconds, we are currently doing as low as 7 seconds. Now, what that does is, so for Kojo, who typically would make a transfer at his bank and it takes 3 to 5 days to arrive at the counterparty in Nigeria, is able to do that transaction instantly. And what that does is that he now has more opportunity to trade. What that will now do is that the trade volumes on the continent will significantly accelerate in such a way that we will begin to see economic prosperity on the continent. Now, we're going to be making sure that Kojo is doing that transaction at a much more affordable cost than what he was used to in the alternatives.
Okay, so ordinarily, if Kojo was exporting to Nigeria or importing from Nigeria, he would have gone there, convert CD into, say, dollar or Naira, and then be able to purchase whatever he wants to purchase. If Kojo has to do business, for instance, with South Africa, do you automatically convert the CD into Rand?
So what we are saying is that Kojo doesn't need to worry about any other currency but his own. So he's able to make the payments, okay, in Ghanaian cedis, and not worry about how cedis turns to Naira, because we've taken that burden off. So he just deals with the currency he knows, and his counterparty, say in Nigeria, understands the Naira. He's also able to receive his payment in Naira. So each of them don't need to start sourcing dollars or doing all of those conversions, because they are going to be doing the transactions in their local currency, which they are used to.
Another worry that we have often heard from particularly transit countries when they have to do business in other countries, for instance, is the exchange rate. When dollar goes up, it means that it would affect the amount of money you need in the other country to service. Now that they don't have to worry about how you do the conversion, do they have to worry about the rate for which you convert the currency? Do you use the regular interbank rates for the currencies? How does it work?
There's another area where you can see the difference in the value addition. So basically, this is a very central bank centric model. And the central banks were involved from agreeing what the design principles are to actually drafting and signing off on the bylaws and all of the laws that will guide this payment system. Now, they have been involved all the way. Now, what happens now is that each central bank, is able to more or less determine the rates. It's not a PAPS. So each country still has its own sovereignty over its own currency, and they are able to determine the rates on that infrastructure. Now, your question takes me back to the main reason why we are doing this. It's not a commercial, the objective is not commercial. We're not doing this because we want to make money. Good. The reason why we are doing this is that we want to see trade accelerate on the continent, okay? So again, those types of very profit-centric motives, you know, where we will start looking at, let's put the rate at a rate where we'll make more money and those types of things, they don't even exist. PAPS is not rewarded because the exchange rate is fixed by the central banks. PAPS is not rewarded by any exchange rate fluctuation. PAPS has no business there. So to that extent, we've handed over the controls over this platform to the central banks. And it's also important to note that beyond the transaction side of things, the central banks form the lever of control or regulation over this infrastructure. The infrastructure is regulated by what is called the PAPS Governing Council. And the PAPS Governing Council has a representation of each of the central banks that have connected on the platform. And that way, we more or less said to ourselves, payment is within the domain of the central banks. Their central banks, we are handing over the control of this infrastructure to you. So that's how we structured it in such a way, because the central banks also have an altruistic goal to be able to drive trade as well. Okay, so they are not looking at that profit in the sense of like a commercial entity would. So to that extent, we are going on this journey with entities who, seeing the acceleration of trade, is more important to them than manipulating rates to be able to make money.
So who can, does it require registration to benefit from the payment system? Do you have to register before you can benefit from it? Or any trader at all can just walk in, any business person can just walk in and transact?
That's a very good question. It's nobody required, the consumers absolutely do not require to register. And let me give you one of the manifestations of this that you will probably see is a bank, a Ghanaian bank, for example, that has maybe 5-10 million customers, and who today is serving its customers using internet banking, mobile banking, and so on. You know, the customer will wake up one day and see, so today he has maybe transfer within the same bank, transfer within between a third-party bank. Then they'll wake up one day and they'll see transfer, do cross-border transfers. So it will be a service that the banks will work with us to develop and make available to their customers on any channel that they have. So businesses don't need any special to meet
special identity.
Yes. So it's more from the point of view of the actual financial institutions who will be participants on PAPS. So we have two sets of participants. We have the central banks who actually build the underlying settlement infrastructure. And then we have the other direct participants and indirect participants who get on and then.
Okay, so at the moment you have 6 central banks on it, right?
We have 6 central banks on it, and then we have a few commercial banks that are actually on that journey.
How many commercial banks do you have, you know?
Then I don't want to give any number that may appear misleading, but we have a number of banks that are currently doing their pilots.
How do you think this will impact on the vision of the continent to integrate its entire market?
Again, this is also why, just to step back a little, this is a project that we have done together with the AFCFTA. And it's actually currently one of the operational instruments that will be required to drive the ambitions under the AFCFTA. Okay, and again, when you think about it, as individuals, as organizations, as governments, we consume goods and services. And the only way that those goods and services are exchanged is by virtue of payments. So what you find is that no matter, you can look at all the other enablers, that will enable trade, but until you deal with the subject of the payment and making payments more efficient, then you'll find that all those other enablers may not achieve the impact that we desire. So clearly, the coming on stream of PAPs and the adoption of PAPs across the continent will have a phenomenal impact on trade on the continent. And I dare to say that without PAPs delivering on its value, then it will be difficult to actually deliver on the overall objectives of growing trade on the continent.
Say big congratulations to the PAPS team there, Mike, the CEO, and the entire team over there, the AfriExim team, for bringing the whole continent closer to this vision of integrating its market through the implementation and operationalization of the PAPS, the Pan-African Payment Settlement Systems. Now, if you are going to Nigeria from Ghana to do business, you don't have to get to Semeboda and say, Charlie, Oga beg, change this money for me, let me get Naira before I go and trade. You can just drop that money in here, in the banks here, and you get to Nigeria. The amount is there within 7 seconds, thereabout you head. Mike talked about it. The money is already in Nigeria, and you can purchase whatever you want. This is where we're going. We might bring you the next version of this interview because we want you to understand it well. And this is a major milestone as far as the vision of the continent is concerned. So innovation, production, business, and export is the order of the day. And as we heard the Secretary General emphasize that at the Zim Trade Conference. So we on the Single African Market program, we have placed quite a number of emphasis and focus, as well as our lenses on folks who are innovating, particularly young folks who are innovating, who are engaged in entrepreneurship, because we believe that entrepreneurs, innovators are going to drive this whole vision of the continent to integrate its market, taking their products across board. Now, this week, our innovator hopes to take over. He's almost there from what the likes and the giants like Apostle Kojo Safo have done, creating and innovating cars of all kinds. Today, the Kantanka cars are everywhere. This innovator, he calls himself Inventor One. He's inventing cars, inventing generators. He's inventing tractors, mowers, and all of that, farming implements, and hopes to be able to send all these products to the other African countries, particularly the immediate neighbors, West African countries. Our Inventor One, our innovator, wants to be there.
I started this work when I was 6 years old at Enchi. I heard on radio that some people just started storing people's cars, so I decided to design a car tracking device. Anytime they take your this thing, what do you call, somebody take the car from you, you can go for anybody mobile phone, you can go for landline, then you dial the line, the number on it. When you dial the line, the engine of the car will go off automatically. I designed a machine that you can use to scratch card. I put some small sandpaper on it, and I use 2 magnets. So when the top one turn and the down one will hold the card, so we can scratch it. Anytime you put something inside, you just punch your number on it. You see this keypad here, you put your number on it. So if you lock it like this, and there's an intruder that you want to open it, this system will give you signal on your cell phone. You see, nobody can open this thing without your knowledge, because anytime somebody tries to open it, it will give you signal. Whether the person is using ASOBRE to cut it or using machine to cut it, you get a signal on your cell phone. You see the time on it. So anytime you lock it, you have 2 different times. You see, the first one is, this one is off, and the other one is on. It means this one has recorded the time that you lock it. So when you open it, it will bring the time that this padlock was locked. This one, the padlock have some camera in it. So this one, you can get the signal on your phone through video or picture. This one is a touch one. This one, anytime you want to put your number, you just on it here, you put your number on it. Nobody can change your number, because you have some secret code that you have to enter before you can put your number on it. So anytime there's an intruder, the padlock will give you signal. This padlock can be used anywhere in these African countries, other Nigeria or Togo or this, but right now, it's not easy to come out with all these things. So right now, the problem is, this thing is in the market now, this padlock is in the market, but only in Ghana. But I want this thing to enter to other African countries like Nigeria, Togo, Benin, because right now, this padlock is solving problem for this banker-to-banker lotto people, because this padlock can give the exact time that the agent close. So right now, the people that they used to buy this padlock a lot is the lotto companies in Ghana here. And the other time, so there's a guy in Togo called me that they want to use my padlock. So if I get a support and a good this thing, right now I don't have machine. All this thing I use my hand to design this thing. See the environment that you are designing this kind of engineering. So you have a good shop, a good workshop, and you can solve a lot of problems for the African countries. You see, the old system sugar road that you have in the system, you have to push it. You put the cement on it, you put everything, you have to push it. You use your strength to push it. So I decided to come out there, sugar road that don't push. When you get there, you can tip it manually like this. You put the sand down, then you bring it back. And it's a back as a drive, so it's very, very strong. And it uses 200 horsepower engine. So you can take, let's say, 5 bags of cement. This truck, we don't push it. You just put your goods here. You have some seat here. You have the brake accelerator. So the driver will sit like this. The passenger will sit here. Because of I saw that the boys are suffering. I come out with this technology, and this technology have solved that problem for them. If you have this truck in all the African countries, South Africa, all the African countries, boys that use their strength to push truck, they will not do that again. And they will use their strength to do different things to help the nation. This car is a cargo car. This car can take a lot of goods. So I want to see this car in the other African countries like Togo, Nigeria, Benin, and everything. So I need support to bring these cars out. This car can take more than 30 bags of cement. It's stronger than this Abobo that you see it in the market. And even this one have 4 tires. The safety is very, very good than the 3-tie Abobo that you have in the market. This one have a helping gear. If you have your load on it and the strength of the engine is not pushing it, you can put in a helping gear. It start moving. So it's in Nigeria, Benin, Togo, because I know that because they are all African, they have problems. The farmers, the farmers can use to carry goods. If they can use this car to take bola in the towns, because this Zoom Lion cars that they are using in Africa here, they buy all from China. So if the government of Ghana asks me to design something they can use to take bola, this car can do the same thing. I'll just cover it. If you get the goods, you can take a lot of boys to come and do the same way, because day in, day out, a lot of Ghanaians or the foreigners just call me, Inventawa, I want to come and learn from you. But see the place I'm working now. I have 5 boys here right now, and the place is very, very small for me. So I can't take another boys now. My idea was I want to take more than 2,000 boys. But right now, because I don't have the financial thing, I can't do that for now. Because I don't want to see the boys smoking, go to the bad place to do this kind of rough thing. People want to learn. So in Africa, it's like if you're a farmer, it means they want to punish you. Because you farm, before you get the goods or the food, you suffer before you get it. If you get it, you're going to carry it on your head. But you have these young boys in the system now, you can create cars for them. I know that the problem that the Ghana farmers have is the same problem that Abidjan, Cote d'Ivoire, these Nigerians, they have the same problem because they are all Africans. Not because they don't want to use it, though, they don't have the solution now. Because anytime black man want to carry something, you have to call the Chinese. The Chinese man have to bring Aboboya. So if you have this thing in what we call Nigeria, Benin, Togo, the farmers can use this machine, simple machine that made by Inventawan to take that goods. Instead of the farmers, they will go for this Aboboya and the stuff. They can invest that money in Inventawan goods so that they will buy my goods for the farmers. Because this one was made in Africa and I was in Ghana here. I know how the road is. So this machine, I use a good metal. So I combine a lot of designs together to get this car. And this car takes 2 passengers. You see, the fuel consumption is very, very low. And this car, I use coil plates to design this car. So I wish one day, all the African countries, the students of African countries will use this car. This car, if you go to the Europeans, you go to the museum, you see this type of cars, classic car. This car was invented in Ademra here, Takoradi. Sometimes you can sit on TV and you see these big mans showing Range Rover, Bugatti and this thing. This Bugatti was invented in China, what we call Americans and this thing. So if you are showing this thing to your friend, a black man, that this car was invented by Asidobudu, it means you are helping a black man. This one too is a 3-tie car. By my 3-tie, I use steer rack. So you're not going to get any pressure like the way you get a Aboboya one. Golf, they have some cars that they use for those that they use to play golf. They have it. The white one, the white people have the same car. But like Achimota Forest, I saw there's a golf center there. If you have this car there, anytime you play your golf, you can take this car along. I know the problem that the Achimota Forest golf, this thing, they have the same problem that they have in Benin, the same problem they have in Togo. This car, if the Kenya, Tanzania, this, what do you call, South Africa, this, even Ghana here, a lot of African countries, they need this car. I want to see this man cars or my machines in every town in Africa or even outside Africa.
One day we may see Inventor One also taking over, doing cars that can be taxis and be Ubers around here, doing tractors and farming implements that can help production on the continent of Africa. All he needs now is for somebody to step in there, help him, prepare him to be able to take over the market as he wishes and as we all desire. So we will be telling you a lot more on the Pan-African payment and settlement systems that's operational now in 6 WAMSI states for you to know a lot more. I think in the next month or so, that of Ghana will be launched and we will endeavor to share everything with you. In the coming days, we'll be talking to the university law students to find out what they know about AFC, FTA and all of that. We'll be the fisher folk everywhere, both in the central region, in the greater Accra region of Ghana, even in Nigeria and all of that to tell you where this whole drive and vision is heading towards. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you up same time next week.